If you spent the better part of your adult life taking care of everyone around you, your children, your parents, your partner, your colleagues, your clients, I want to ask you something. When was the last time your body felt completely, deeply at rest? Not just asleep, not just off duty, but genuinely physiologically safe. For most women I work with, that question is met with a long silence. Because here's what nobody tells you: years, sometimes decades, of putting everyone else first doesn't just leave you emotionally depleted, it physically reshapes your nervous system. It changes the way your brain reads threat. It alters the chemicals that govern your mood, your metabolism, your sleep, and your hormones. This is not a mindset problem. This is not a discipline problem. This is not something you can willpower your way out of. This is a physiological story. And today we're going to tell it. Welcome back to Rewire to Restore. I'm your host, and this is week 2, the caretaker's nervous system, how decades of overdoing rewire you. Today, we're going to cover 4 interconnected territories. First, we'll look at polyvagal theory, the science of how your nervous system actually works in plain, real language that you can apply immediately. Second, we'll explore the freeze and collapse pattern, the nervous system state that is almost epidemic among women over 45 who have been in chronic caregiving roles, and why it gets misread as laziness or depression. Third, we'll look at how the body learns to override its own signals and what that costs you over time. Third, and finally, we'll go deep into 2 of our 4 exhaustion patterns, the somatic storm and the hormonal hurricane, through the lens of traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, and medical astrology, plus the nutritional endocrinology that bridges all of it. If you haven't taken the energy alchemy quiz yet, I want to encourage you to do that either before or right after this video. The link is in the description. Knowing your pattern will make everything we cover today land even more specifically for you. Dr. Stephen Porges introduced the world to polyvagal theory in the 1990s, and it quietly revolutionized how we understand stress, trauma, and the nervous system. Let me give you the version that actually matters for your life. Your autonomic nervous system, the one that runs underneath your conscious awareness, operates in 3 distinct states. Think of them as 3 floors of a building, and your nervous system moves between them based on what it perceives about safety. So the 3 states are the ventral vagal, that's safety and connection. This is the penthouse, the social engagement. This is the ventral vagal state. This is where connection happens, creativity flows, digestion works, and you feel genuinely present in your life. This is what we're restoring you to. The middle floor, mobilization, this is the sympathetic state. Fight or flight. Here, your body is ready to act. Heart rate up, digestion down. Cortisol and adrenaline running the show. This is where most exhausted women live. They've been in this state so long, it feels like their baseline. The basement, the freeze state. This is the dorsal vagal state. When the threat is perceived as inescapable, the system shuts down. Collapse, numbness, disconnection, fatigue so profound that rest doesn't touch it. This is the invisible nervous system state that so many women, over 45 especially, find themselves in and don't recognize. Here's the critical piece. Your nervous system does not assess threat intellectually. It doesn't care that the danger has passed or that you're fine now. It responds to cues of safety or danger in the body and environment, what Porges calls neuroception. And if it has learned over years and decades that you are never truly safe to rest, it will keep you on alert or pull you into collapse, regardless of what your mind tells it. Chronic caregiving is one of the most powerful teachers of insecurity your nervous system can have. Not because you were doing anything wrong, but because you were always needed, always on call, always scanning for the next thing to manage. That leaves a mark, not a moral one, a neurological one. Let me talk specifically about the freeze and collapse pattern, because this is one of the most misunderstood and misdiagnosed experiences in midlife women's health. Freeze is not the dramatic paralysis of acute trauma, though it lives on the same continuum. In its chronic, everyday form, freeze looks like this. You wake up tired, no matter how much you slept. You feel vaguely disconnected from your body, like you're watching your life behind glass. Motivation is elusive. Things that used to bring you joy feel flat. You might describe yourself as just going through the motions. Emotional numbness alternates with sudden overwhelm. You feel guilty for not doing more, and yet even small tasks feel mountainous. Sound familiar? In conventional medicine, this constellation often gets labeled depression, burnout, or thyroid dysfunction. And it may be those things, but often, what it is at its root is a nervous system that has collapsed into dorsal vagal shutdown after years of chronic threat. Here's what's happening physiologically. The dorsal vagus, the oldest branch of the vagus nerve, is an ancient survival mechanism. When an organism perceives that it cannot escape a threat, when the danger is inescapable, the system goes offline. It conserves energy. It reduces metabolic demand. It numbs pain. It disconnects. For women who have spent decades in hypervigilance, managing other people's needs while suppressing their own. The nervous system can slip into this state, not because of one acute trauma, but because of the accumulated weight of 10,000 small moments of self-abandonment. You don't need to have experienced capital T trauma to be living in your basement. And here is what willpower absolutely cannot do. It cannot move you from collapse back into connection. Willpower lives in the prefrontal cortex, the thinking brain. The dorsal vagal state has essentially taken the thinking brain offline. Trying harder is like pressing the gas when the engine has seized. What actually works? We'll get to that. But first, let's understand the third piece, how the body learns to go quiet. Interoception is the technical term for the body's ability to sense and communicate its internal state: hunger, thirst, temperature, heart rate, fatigue, the need for touch, for rest, for movement. In healthy nervous system function, these signals are clear. You feel hungry, you eat. You feel tired, you rest. You feel lonely, you reach out. The body speaks and you respond. But in chronic caregiving, you learn to override these signals, not once, thousands of times. You eat when you can, not when you're hungry. You sleep when the baby lets you, not when your body asks. You push through fatigue because there are people who need you. You suppress your grief, your frustration, your fear, because someone else is in crisis and they need you to be okay. Over time, the nervous system learns. This person doesn't respond to my signals, and so it stops sending them clearly, or it sends them in increasingly distorted ways, as anxiety, as pain, as inflammation, as hormonal chaos. The body becomes, in a very real neurological sense, a stranger. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk titled his landmark book, The Body Keeps the Score. And what he means is precisely this. Everything you suppressed, overrode, or didn't have space to process didn't disappear. It went into tissue, into nervous system wiring, into hormonal signaling, into the way your cells talk to each other. Reclaiming your health is, at its deepest level, a process of learning to hear your own body again, not from willpower, not from discipline, from safety, from nervous system regulation, from the very practices we're going to build together throughout this series. Let me bring in the 4 frameworks because each one illuminates a different facet of this week's teaching. In medical astrology, we are currently in the era of Uranus in Gemini, and the collective nervous system is operating in a state of chronic overstimulation. Gemini governs the nervous system, the lungs, and the communication pathways of the body. And Uranus is the great disruptor. When Uranus transits Gemini, as it did in the 1940s and now again, collective anxiety, Information overload and nervous system fragmentation are hallmarks of the time. For women over 45 who are also navigating Saturn's midlife transits, particularly those approaching or in their Saturn return, their second Saturn return, there is an additional call. Saturn demands we release what no longer serves. The caretaking role that kept you running for decades is being asked to transform. The nervous system dysregulation you're experiencing isn't punishment. It's a signal that the old way of being can no longer be sustained. In traditional Chinese medicine, the organ system most implicated in the caretaker's nervous system is the heart-kidney axis. The heart governs Shen, the spirit, the capacity for presence, joy, and clear mind. The kidney governs Jing, the deepest constitutional reserve of life force energy. When we chronically override the body's signals, we deplete kidney yin, the cooling, nourishing, rooting energy that keeps the nervous system calm. Without sufficient yin, the heart becomes unsettled. Shen becomes disturbed. Racing thoughts, insomnia, anxiety, palpitations, emotional volatility. This is the TCM picture of a nervous system that has been asked to give what it no longer has. The heart also governs the blood in TCM, and blood, when depleted, contributes to the freeze pattern. Numbness, emotional flatness, disconnection. What the West calls dorsal vagal shutdown, TCM recognizes as heart blood deficiency. Different language, identical woman. Ayurveda locates the nervous system primarily in Vata dosha, the energy of air and ether, movement and communication. Chronic caregiving, overwork, irregular schedules, and suppressed needs all aggravate Vata profoundly. But here is what Ayurveda adds that is uniquely powerful. It names the depletion of Ojas, the essence of immunity, vitality, and the most refined product of digestion and nourishment. Ojas is what gives you that quality of being deeply nourished in body and spirit. It is produced slowly over months and years of good food, adequate rest, meaningful connection, and inner peace. It is also depleted slowly through exactly the lifestyle of the chronic caretaker. Irregular eating, disrupted sleep, suppressed emotions, and giving more than you receive are the 4 fastest routes to Ojas depletion. And when Ojas is gone, the nervous system has nothing left to draw on. This is the Ayurvedic explanation for the woman who does everything right and still cannot feel well. The nervous system is a biochemical system as much as a neurological one. Chronic stress in the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal pathway that governs your stress response, depletes specific nutrients at an accelerated rate. Magnesium is used in over 300 enzymatic reactions and is consumed rapidly under stress. It is the single most important mineral for nervous system regulation, sleep architecture, and cortisol metabolism. Most exhausted women are significantly depleted in magnesium. B vitamins, particularly B6, B12, and folate, are essential for neurotransmitter synthesis, including serotonin, dopamine, and GABA. The freeze-collapse pattern is biochemically often a reflection of depleted inhibitory neurotransmitters, the brain's ability to soothe itself. Omega-3 fatty acids are essential for neuronal membrane integrity and the regulation of neuroinflammation, which in chronic stress becomes a significant driver of mood dysregulation, brain fog, and nervous system hypersensitivity. Phosphatidylserine supports HPA axis downregulation and cortisol control, directly targeting the hyperactivation pattern before it tips into collapse. If you're a somatic store, your body has become a storage unit for everything you couldn't process in real time. The grief you swallowed, the anger you converted to productivity, the fear you managed with busyness, the longing you learned not to speak. In the body, this shows up as chronic tension, particularly in the jaw, the neck, the shoulders, and the hips, as digestive sensitivity, as skin that reacts to stress, as a sense of holding that never fully releases, even in sleep. Your nervous system spent years in sympathetic overdrive, fight or flight, and it has likely shifted over time into the freeze-collapse pattern described above. You may have periods of high functioning followed by crashes that feel out of proportion. Your body's sensory signals have become unreliable because you learned to override them so many times. The path forward for the somatic store is somatic, slow, gentle, body-based practices that rebuild the capacity to feel safe inside your own skin again. Not talking about it, feeling it carefully, incrementally, with support. If you're a hormonal hurricane, you will likely experience your nervous system dysregulation as intensity rather than collapse. Your energy swings dramatically. High highs, crashing lows. Your emotions feel like weather systems that arrive without warning. You may be highly sensitive to perceived injustice, have a hair-trigger stress response, and oscillate between pushing hard and complete depletion. The hormonal hurricane's nervous system is stuck in a loop between sympathetic activation and dorsal vagal shutdown, swinging between the two without ever landing in the ventral vagal window of safety and regulation. This is the nervous system equivalent of driving with one foot on the gas and one on the brake. Biochemically, this pattern often reflects dysregulated cortisol rhythms, high at night, low in the morning, or erratically spiking throughout the day, combined with the hormonal volatility of perimenopause amplifying every nervous system response. The path forward for the hormonal hurricane is rhythm, establishing predictable daily anchors that teach the nervous system that safety is reliable and that rest is available. Not more intensity, regularity, consistency, the steady heartbeat of a day that holds you. This week, I want to offer you a simple practice drawn from somatic experiencing called the Orienting Response. The same practice we introduced last week. But this week, I want you to bring your awareness specifically to what this exercise reveals about your nervous system's current home base. Pause wherever you are. Let your eyes soften and slowly move around the space. Not looking for anything, just looking. Let your gaze move to something that feels pleasant, neutral, or safe. A color, a texture, a piece of natural light, a plant. Let your eyes rest there for a breath. Now notice, where in your body do you feel even a fraction of relaxation? It might be subtle, a slight drop in your shoulders, a softening around your eyes, a breath that goes just a little deeper. That fraction of safety, that is ventral vagal. That is the state we are building toward. And the beautiful, counterintuitive truth is this: we don't get there by trying harder. We get there by learning to find safety in tiny doses, again and again, until the nervous system begins to trust that safety is real. That is the work. And it is the most important work you will ever do for your hormones, your health, your relationships, and your life force. Before you go this week, I want to remind you, if you haven't yet taken the Energy Alchemy quiz, please do. The link is below. The quiz will tell you exactly which of the 4 exhaustion patterns is most active in your system. And from week 3 onward, we're going to be building your personalized restoration plan based on that pattern. You can't rewire what you don't understand. The quiz is the map. This series is the journey. Next week, we begin the restoration process and phase. Week 3 is vagal toning for real life. Practical tools drawn from all 4 frameworks to begin moving you back into your window of tolerance, your capacity for rest, your ventral vagal home. Until then, orient, rest. Let yourself be seen by your own body. I'll see you next week.